Everybody, and welcome to the Rock Pile tonight. It's been, I think, about 3 weeks. We've been running the shows every couple of weeks, but happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed their holidays. I know my family and I did. We were down in North Carolina visiting family. So hopefully, everybody had a good time. But I bring the guys back on here tonight. We got Coach Kramer making his appearance for the first time this off season. I got Coach DeColo be on here. I got Nick from CBUS. Coach Medicis had a scrimmage tonight. I told him I can't believe he scheduled a scrimmage over coming on tonight. He might join us. I'm not sure. If you're listening to us on any of the sites tonight and you have any questions for the guys, comments, just put them in there and I'll pull over as many as I can. Tonight's show should be fun. It's been a while. We're going to recap about the game. You can obviously see the jersey I have on tonight. I had to wear that for CBUS tonight. I got to enjoy it. It hasn't happened in a long time, so I do have the jersey on. We'll give predictions of all the conference championship games. We'll talk a little BCS. We'll give our thoughts on coaching carousel with Lincoln Riley, the news going to USC, and Brian Kelly. I don't know if anybody saw Brian Kelly coming and heading to LSU, so we'll talk about that here as well. So with that, let me bring the guys on. What's going on, guys?
Evening, Rock.
CBUS, good to have you on. Coach Kramer, good to have you on. Congrats on the season.
Thank you.
Jake, I said before coming on, you look nice and comfortable tonight. You look nice and laid back, and I like that look.
Well, I appreciate it. And is that a West Virginia jersey on, it looks like?
It kind of looks it. It's a Pat White jersey.
There you go.
Listen, I was telling Nick before we came on here tonight, I said I had to listen to the game on the radio because we were on our way back from North Carolina, and it was 2.5 hours where my wife and I didn't say anything to each other. And then after the game, I was telling these guys, she says, good for you. It's the first time in how many years? 10 years? Good for you. And I'm like, just let me enjoy it. Let me take it all in. So it was a long drive home, but it was well worth the drive, that's for sure. So what do we got tonight? CBUS, what do you got tonight?
I'm still licking my wounds over here, Rock. It's a good thing. It's a good thing Ohio State upset Duke last night to try to salvage my sports week. But no, a fantastic week of college football. Great action, storylines galore last week, and then we're heading into championship week, right? This Saturday. This is championship Saturday. Doesn't get a whole lot better than this. A lot on the line. Everything is wide open. I think we all agree it's Georgia is in, and we're going to find out who the next 3 spots are, right? So looking forward to talking about it and looking forward to watching them.
Coach Kramer, good to have you on here tonight. What's going on?
I'm excited to be back, guys. There's a ton to talk about, and I agree with CBUS. I don't think we've had a Final Four where the majority of the field is wide open, and I think we all agree Georgia's in, and what an exciting week. I actually went and watched with my son. I went and watched Pittsburgh and Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
And I'll tell you what, for the guys that haven't seen Pickett from Pittsburgh play, that kid can throw it.
Yeah, and he it looks like he benefited big time coming back. It looks like they got him as the first quarterback, possibly the first pick of the draft coming out.
He was fun to watch.
Jake, what do you got tonight?
No, just exciting. Who would ever thought, beginning of the year, Oklahoma, Clemson, Ohio State, not in the top 4. And, just how many guys and quarterbacks are coming back for those teams and how good they are. And they're not in the top 4 or even have a great chance of making it. So, what a crazy year this has been.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk some BCS with you guys to see if we do get any chaos or if it's all chalk this Saturday. I have a feeling it's not going to be all chalk, but we'll see. How about Coach O riding off on the sunset, beating Texas A&M, $17 million buyout he got at LSU. So he's going to ride off into the sunset, and then of course we get the news with Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly. We'll get into that and more. But I got to start with the game, guys. Michigan, Ohio State. As I was saying before we came on a broadcast, I got to be honest. I have told CBUS, he had texted me the night before, Nick, and I think I told you I liked Ohio State big because I didn't think Michigan was going to stop them, but I did not see the physical part from Michigan, what they did on Saturday. CBUS, what'd you think?
Yeah, I think, if we want to go back and read that text thread, right, I think I said the game always comes down to who wins the line of scrimmage. And I felt like it was a great matchup for Michigan at the point of attack. I thought more so Michigan on the defensive front attacking Ohio State's O-line. I'm not sure that I saw Ohio State's defensive line getting punched in the mouth. But, I think, everybody's heard me on this show. I feel like Ohio State's defense and linebacker play has been suspect now for a couple of years. And I think what Michigan exposed was, while the stats maybe looked like Ohio State's defense was better, especially against the run, it was a lot predicated on the fact that Ohio State's offense was up by 14 or 17 points, and teams could not run the football against them because they needed to make it up on the scoreboard. So I thought it was I thought Michigan 1,000% deserved to win that game. There no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think the weather was a good factor for Michigan. Ohio State's speed on the outside was neutralized in part because of the inclement weather. But if you can't stop a team running the ball down your throat, I don't care how many points you're going to score, you're not going to be able to win the football game. The other thing I'll say is, I've watched Hutchinson play Rock probably 4 or 5 games this year. But the kid might be the best defensive player I've seen come out of Michigan since Charles Woodson, from a defensive end. And this is coming from somebody who's watched Chase Young play for 3 years and the Bosa brothers play for 3 years at Ohio State. He is every bit as good as those kids. He plays with a great motor, has multiple moves off the end. And he's the lifeblood of that team. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He makes that team tick. Harbaugh will tell you that. So long time coming. Congrats. I'm a kid of the 80s and the 90s, right? So I felt I've dealt with losses to that school up north, so I know what it feels like. I don't like it, but I know what it feels like. And there'll be some seismic shift down here in C-Bus for the next 6 or 7 months, worrying about what happened last Saturday.
Jim, when you watched that game, what were you most surprised with from Michigan during that game?
Well, I think we all were surprised with the overall physicality, but I think Harbaugh throughout the week had this eerie, quiet confidence to him. I thought in his press conferences, I thought in years leading up, he was super motivated, super boisterous about the rival, and I thought he was as calm as could be. So either he knew he really liked the matchup. Obviously, if that was any of us, he was feeling the pressure, right? He hasn't beat him yet, but I thought he was super confident in his guys, and you could tell by how he approached the week. And then, it just shows what, sometimes we're right, sometimes we're not. I listened to the pregame show. Charles Woodson says the only way to beat them is to throw the ball over top, make the big play, and then they come out and run the ball right down their throat all game long. So I'm happy for him. I'm excited for Michigan. I'm excited for Cincinnati, what's ahead of them. I'm just excited to see some new faces get a shot at this thing, hopefully. Kind of spice up the Final Four.
Jake, how about you?
Yeah, I think it definitely helped that Michigan jumped on first and never gave up the lead. I think that helped their confidence with Michigan, because it could have been very easily, Ohio State jumps out first and then they go, oh, here we go again. And you get the doubt sinking into your head. But, Michigan did a great job of jumping on them first, holding them, and they even come out at halftime and not let them score that third quarter and putting 14 on them to pull away. So I thought that was a huge advantage for them to keep that confidence going and just keep Ohio State on their heels.
Yeah, Jim, I'm with you, because all year I kept saying Harbaugh takes the pay cut, brings in an entire new staff, which he better thank his brother for giving him Mike McDonald, because that was a huge hire for him. But he looked really calm. His demeanor was good all year. He never looked like he panicked. And you would think going into this game, he's got to be thinking, I've never beat Ohio State. This game is what it was years ago. And I did tell my wife that I love to see when Michigan can play Ohio State, when the winner goes to the Big Ten championship or has a shot to go to the playoff. And that's what this game was about. They dominated the line of scrimmage. But one of the things I'll say this too about Jim Harbaugh is I think he pushed all the right buttons so far this entire season. Outside of the Michigan State game, they really should be 12-0 right now. But defensively, with a new coordinator coming in, it was a whole different look. And hey, Jim Harbaugh's given up all his bonus money to some of the employees at Michigan. So you got to tip your hat. But I was happy for him. But I'm with you, Jim. I love seeing the Alabama's not there, the Ohio States, all different teams. We could see all different teams with a shot to win it. And besides, like you guys are saying, Michigan ran for where's my stat? 297 yards rushing. Ohio State had 64 yards. So huge. A lot of other rivalry games. I watched a couple of them. I saw the Auburn-Alabama game. Ole Miss, Mike Leach game was a good one. Iowa-Nebraska, another one for Scott Frost, where he's been in all these close games this year, but can't find a way to close the deal. NC State, North Carolina was good. Bedlam was great. Who would have known that was the last game for Lincoln Riley? Is there a game, Jake, for you that stood out as you watched these games on Saturday?
I would have to go with your last one, the Oklahoma State game. That was a very exciting game, especially in prime time. And now looking back, knowing that was his last game, what would have been different if they would have won that game? Was he, would they kept it quiet because he had a chance to go into the playoffs? But give Van Gundy. It's right, it's Van Gundy, isn't it?
Just Gundy.
Yeah,
Mike Gundy. Yeah.
If he was been losing to them and not giving over the hump. Now he's over the hump, and they win this title game. They could very easily be in. So that was a huge game for them in their own place.
And how about Lane Kiffin? Everybody with all this speculation, is Lane going to LSU? I thought Lane was leaving, but now it looks like Lane's probably going to stay at Ole Miss. But they're going to finish 10-2 and probably get a New Year's 6 bowl game. So I was really, really, really shocked to see that Lane Kiffin did that in year 2 at Ole Miss. Jim, what game stood out to you?
I agree with Jake in the sense that the college football world is turned upside down with Oklahoma State beating Oklahoma. I mean, I agree. I think if Oklahoma wins that game, they're playing in the Big 12 championship potentially, and they're. I just don't know where that goes. But to go back to it, I would say Alabama Auburn. I think because Auburn has that game won, and that probably officially knocks Alabama out. I think we would agree with that situation, a 2-loss team. And here we go again. And obviously Alabama beats Georgia, they're going to be in. Now, if Alabama does not beat Georgia, I'm from the sense that they should be out with 2 losses. But we're not the ones sitting in that room, and we know Alabama gets a little bit of an extra look each time. I think we would all agree with that. So I think they've kept themselves in the mix, and that was quite a survival by them.
So, Jim, I want to ask you and Jake. So, Alabama, Auburn scores in overtime. Instead of kicking it, to tie the game going, or they kicked it to go to another overtime. They're 6-5. Do you go for 2?
Me
Do you guys agree with that call?
I go for 2. It's when especially you have that ball and you're beating a team like that. Hey, go for it. Especially you got a little bit more momentum going. That's just, it goes by what the coach feels like and what he's confident in. I know Auburn's always thinking of their defense, and we'll go out and hold them. But personally, if you get a shot like that, you take it.
I mean, especially too, Bo Nix is out. The other quarterback that was in there was banged up. You have to be thinking, if this thing goes another overtime, Alabama's going to somehow find a way to win this game. Jim, do you go for 2 or do you kick it and play another overtime?
I mean, it's easy for us all to say go for 2, but I will say with the new rules that they are now, it's not crazy to go for 2. I mean, because once you get past that certain number, you have to anyways. I can see both sides. I can see neither team was running the ball very successfully. You were probably going to have to complete a pass in that situation. I think you're right. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but you got Alabama on the ropes, and for a first-year head coach, I mean, it's a shot to plant yourself right there in Auburn and in the mix, and I think you got to go for that shot.
C-Bus, outside the Michigan-Ohio State game, which one did you like?
I thought the Alabama-Auburn game was the most telling, told me the most, just because, I've questioned Alabama all year. Every time I watch them, whether it was the Florida game, whether it was their loss to A&M, whether it was their struggles, past couple of weeks, and then obviously the Auburn game, there's just something missing with this Alabama team. And I know they're young and they've replaced a lot, but it's just quite obvious. Offensively, they don't look as sound, especially running the football. I thought Auburn did a fantastic job of trying to contain that run. and they were successful. I'll tell you this: I go for 2 all day from a fan perspective, just based on what I knew that Auburn quarterback was limping around the entire fourth quarter, dragging one leg around just to try to finish the game because they didn't have anybody left other than a walk-on. To imagine trotting that poor kid out there in the fourth quarter of a big game, right? I thought the other interesting game, Rock, was Minnesota beating Wisconsin. I thought Wisconsin was really coming on. They had really seemed to kind of figure some things out. Grant Mertz has been playing better. And I thought Minnesota, they've lost, 5-6 running backs, it seems like, this year. And I feel like PJ Fleck just finds a way to get his kids to play hard from week 1 to week 12 or week 13. And, Kramer and Coach Jake, right? You guys both know how hard that's probably got to be. And I feel like he continually does that, right? Every single week, every single year I look down and it's like, they might not be the greatest team. They might be 7-5. They might be 6-6. They might be 8-4. But walking into that game, you got to play 4 quarters, right?
Roll
and
the
so,
boat. Roll the boat.
Yeah. I just thought it was a really good example of how these kids can really rally together, rivalry game, right? And I just thought it was another stain on really a disappointing year for Wisconsin, right? It really feels like that East was or that West Division was wide open for them, and they just could not piece it together. They struggled early, and then and a big time loss to end the season.
Well, for me, I mean, you guys touched on all of it, but I saw the reaction for Coach Brian Harsin after that game. When Harsin got hired from Boise State, I said, is that the right fit? Because I didn't think Auburn should have got rid of Gus Malzahn, because I thought Malzahn won games at Auburn. So I didn't know if that was really the best fit. But seeing his reaction at the end of that game, and then, seeing that Mac Brown had a preseason top 10 team, to see the way that they finished at North Carolina. And don't forget about Brady Hoke. How about tip your hat to Brady Hoke and San Diego State at 11-1? They're not going to go to a big bowl game, but 11-1, chance to win the Mountain West
I wish he was
Conference.
coaching last Saturday against Ohio State.
I know. And then don't forget about James Franklin in Penn State. I mean, James Franklin, they just gave him this big 10-year extension. They finished 7-5 again. He's had 2 really down years at Penn State. So, the Michigan State-Penn State game, and then, as I said at the beginning of the show, Coach O rides off into the sunset, $17 million buyout, which, again, I thought he should have stayed. I thought they should have restructured him, let him make some changes on the staff like Scott Frost had to do, like Jim Harbaugh had to do. And now we wait and see from the games on Saturday. Guys, Lincoln Riley to USC. I'm not sure if any of us saw that coming. And I just want to say a couple things on him and Brian Kelly, and I'll let you guys talk too. I didn't like the way Brian Kelly went out and how his team found out, but now with social media, these kids are finding out, much quicker. But one of the things I'll say about the Brian Kelly piece is I give Brian Kelly some credit because he's won a lot of games at Notre Dame. Being independent, the schedule hasn't been as tough as playing in the SEC. So I think he's going from Notre Dame, where he can win 9, 10, 11 games a year. Now he's got to go recruit and play in that tough SEC. I think Lincoln Riley's got the easier path in the Pac-12. All he's got to beat is Oregon every year, and he's still going to recruit at a high level. And many are saying, did Lincoln Riley, was he scared to go into the SEC? I think he's a good fit there. Do you guys think, Jim, do you think that Brian Kelly will win at LSU?
First of all, we found out the money talks. That's what we found out on both places. But I mean, Brian Kelly's won everywhere he's been. He's won at where was it? Grand Valley State or something like that. And then it was at Cincinnati and then Notre Dame. And I think Notre Dame is a tough place to recruit in terms of trying to sell the top tier player that, you play in that independent schedule. I give him a lot of credit for walking away from that team, especially the recruiting classes that supposedly they have coming in on paper. But I think all of us as coaches, and Jake will agree to this, I mean, we're competitors and we want to try to do it at the highest level we're capable of. And who's to argue the SEC? And so I think that he's trying to put his stamp. I think he's probably tired of hearing that he's number 4, number 5, number 6 best coach in the country. And I think he's trying to make his move.
But you think Lincoln Riley goes in there year 1 and wins games?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think with the transfer portal, and if you look at the way that these recruits are reacting, right? It's very much what is hot and what's trendy right now, right? You bring a big name like that out to the left coast. We talked about this early in the season when we were talking about USC, and after we found out Helton was gone, I think we all agreed if you can get a name there and some swag there, right? We know the kids are going to come. And the path is definitely cleaner for him. I think they're in the Pac-12. I think that's it's a money hungry piece. I think it's gonna, I think we'll see. He'll to get his offense and all that will probably take a little bit of time, but they're going to be competitive immediately next year. I'll be honest, I got a big problem with Brian Kelly and leaving to LSU. I think that the timing was absolutely horrible. I think if he wanted the LSU job, I think there is no reason that he can't make a silent verbal to LSU, and that does not sit until after a bowl game. I think, or at least to find out if they're in the playoff or not in the playoff. And I think it's a little funny to me that you didn't win at Notre Dame. You didn't win a national championship. You got to the college football playoff three times, and you got your butt kicked, right? I mean, absolutely annihilated on the biggest stage 3 times. And your answer is, I want to go somewhere else where I can recruit better players, maybe because of academic standards. If that's your reasoning, I'll hear it. But man, the message to me that, it goes back, and if you listen to some of my parting shots throughout the season, I've been all about the transfer portal and letting these kids go. And Jake, I know you were kind of, transfer portal, I don't know, right? To me, if this doesn't cement the fact that you got to let these kids do and go where they want to go, because these coaches are going where the heck they want to go, and they're going in the middle of the season. And I get it. There's recruiting timelines and all that stuff, and I'm here for it, and I'll listen to it. But I don't know how you look at those kids at Notre Dame who went 11-1, and I listened to his little speech this morning or yesterday morning, and it's, well, guys, I think you deserve to be in the playoff. Well, if you think we deserve to be in the playoff, Coach, how are you not staying here with us to go to the playoff?
Because he got $10 million.
He was making $8.5 million at Notre Dame. Don't give me that stupid $1.5 million increase. It's all chump change to those guys now. He's been making millions of dollars for 20 years. The dude, it's a chicken shit move. And if I'm the players, I'm rooting for Notre Dame to make the playoff. I think, news feed while we've been on here, Marcus Freeman got named the head coach at Notre Dame. I think Tommy Rees is going to stay on as the offensive coordinator. If I'm Notre Dame, let me in that playoff and let me show Brian Kelly what a mistake he made. I just think it's a terrible, terrible timing of a move.
Was that breaking news that they name him the interim coach?
I believe they are naming him the next football coach.
Oh, wow.
Not interim tag.
Okay. All right.
Great recruiter, great Buckeye, will be a good coach for Notre Dame.
So, Jake, I listened to, and you guys might have listened to it. I love listening to the press conferences, but I listened to Lincoln Riley's, and then I listened to Lincoln Riley get interviewed by Joe Klatt, and he was talking about, offensively, are you going to be doing a lot of same things you did at Oklahoma? Are you bringing a lot of that to USC? And he made a really good comment. He says, I have to see what talent I have here. It's going to look different. But some things will be the same. So from an offensive standpoint, since Lincoln Riley's that offensive guru, what are some things he's going to have to do when he comes into USC that he might have to do differently than he did at Oklahoma?
Well, obviously, he's going to have to get there and see what he has there. And then also, like Sebas says, the transfer portal is going to be huge for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of those 2 quarterbacks even just say, hey, I'm coming with you, or even a young guy, hey, I want to go out west, because it's amazing with the transfer portal that players can enter in the middle of the season. I'm done. I'm going to enter the transfer portal and go on. So I think he'll get a lot out of there. And he'll do a good job recruiting. But he's got to find a quarterback. I mean, that's what he's lived on the past couple of years, having Hurts and Murray, and then even this year going between Rattler and Williams. But he's always had a talented quarterback. So we'll be interested to see if he doesn't get that high caliber quarterback, how is that offense going to look?
So he made a comment, said he didn't get contacted until early Sunday morning. And a lot of people are saying that's BS. There's no way they contacted him Sunday morning. And at his press conference Saturday night after Bedlam, a reporter asked him, "Are you going to be the next coach?" They said at LSU. And he says, "I'm not going to be the next coach at LSU." But I think, again, did he take the easy way out of taking the USC job because he's avoiding the SEC? That Pac-12 is much easier. Oklahoma is going to be going into the SEC. I from what I heard from his contract, they bought him a $6 million house in Southern California. They paid off 2 of his houses. He's getting a private jet that he can use at any time. Right? It's a tough life. But do you think he chose to go that way because it's an easier path, or do you believe him when he says he wanted a new challenge?
I think it's – I mean, if you think about it, all those SEC coaches, the Florida coach fired after 1 year, Ed fired after winning a national championship. I think that those schools down there compare themselves to or try to get to the standard of Alabama and what Nick Saban does. Hey, we want national championships over and over and over. And you had 2 bad seasons. Doesn't matter. You're out. We'll pay you whatever the buyout is and everything. And there's what I heard the stat. It was like out of those 14 teams in the last 3 years, 10 schools have had new coaches there. I think the longest term coaches now are Nick Saban, Jimbo, and Stoops at Kentucky. I think almost everyone else has brand new coaches within the 2 or 3 years. So it's just like a rotating door. So I think most coaches see that. I think some will take the challenge, but also, going out west, knowing that, hey, I could have job security, get 11 wins, get the program going out there, and always be right there because I'm winning, their Pac-12 and try to turn into like an Alabama, that they're always winning the SEC, but they'll be the Pac-12 and being right there in the playoffs.
So, Jim, what's your thoughts? I want to get your guys' thoughts on this quickly because, James Franklin, there was all these names, Matt Campbell, so many names rumored for all these jobs. Every time a job came up, you heard the same 5 or 6 names, but you had the Mel Tucker that signed the extension. You had James Franklin signs the extension. Even my guy, Dave Clausen at Wake Forest signs an extension. So some of these guys are staying put. What's your thoughts on Mel Tucker getting that big extension? He's only been at Michigan State a couple years. He has a good year this year. James Franklin really hasn't done much the last couple years. What were your thoughts on their extensions?
Well, I think people are finding out that they don't want to restart again. I think that's number one. They feel confident in their guy. They don't want to restart. What concerns me is I think in 4 or 5 years, we're going to be talking about all these coaches' buyouts, because let's just talk about the Big Ten. I mean, at the end of the day, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Penn State are all on the same side. So they all can't win, and what's the expectation? I mean, something tells me if Ryan Day, can't go 2 or 3 years without being in the Big Ten championship and keep the job at Ohio State. I think Seabus, you would agree with that.
Absolutely.
And Jim Harbaugh now is hopefully going to beat Iowa and get to where he hasn't been yet before, but he's still got to beat Iowa to do that. And Michigan State and Penn State just go down the list. And I think going back to Lincoln Riley, I don't know how they're going to divide the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, but I mean, on that west side would be Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama. Once again, they all have to beat each other or lose to somebody. You finish 4th place in the SEC West, you're getting fired.
Rock, the one thing I'd say about the SEC maybe running scared is Oklahoma's traditionally problem has been on defense, right? Mm-hmm. I think we can all agree they can score points with everybody. But when they've been in the playoff and even where they've ran into problems in the Big 12 has been them stopping people. You're not going to outscore people in the SEC without being able to play defense. And I just wonder if he looked at the challenge that it was going to take to build a defense to compete in the SEC was more of a challenge or a greater risk to his head coaching status at Oklahoma than it was to go out to SC, start fresh, build a program that Helton already laid the foundation for, and now they can try to take over the Pac-12, and now I only got to have my defense be good enough to win maybe 3 games, right, that are really important to end the year, right? So I have to think that changing conferences like that, going to the big dogs in the SEC, that's a fundamental program change you got to make, especially on the defensive end for Oklahoma. And I just wonder if that might have been a little bit too much when he was really weighing a $6 million house and private jets everywhere. So, well, let's go.
Jake, we've talked on this show a lot, and I know I've talked about it on Saturday mornings with Coach Medicis, but some of these coaches that leave for the big bucks in the big program, I always go back to my guy Dave Clausen, who Nick always busts my chops on. But these are guys. So you take a guy like Dave Clausen, who's comfortable at Wake Forest. He makes probably $4 million, rumored for all these jobs. Decides he wants to stay put because it's the right fit. Are we going to start to see more coaches staying put because it's the right fit for them instead of passing up on, the big bucks like Lincoln Riley's going to get and what Brian Kelly's going to? Do you think we'll see more of that down the road?
I would say it's hard. It all depends on the coach. You look at Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. Every so often he has those great years, and everyone's like, oh, he can be the next guy, and then he rebuilds again. I think it just comes with that comfort level. If it depends on how that coach and that family is. But I think even Kramer can attest, us being head coaches, you always put yourselves, what if I was at that school and had that talent there and brought my system in? I think we could do it, and that I can be the difference maker. That's just the ego of a lot of players and coaches that, and it's not just players, it's the ego. Like, I want to be that guy like Nick Saban, that he's on top of the mountain. And I'm interested to see now, and I'm not saying college coaches moving. How about the NFL coaches? Wait a minute, they're making this much money. Why be a coordinator in the NFL where you can go down and make that much money and maybe make a huge impact with it? But I just think it's more of an ego thing. It's how bad do you want it, and job security.
So you guys, and I had candidates at Oklahoma, and obviously you can take Mark Stoops out because Mark Stoops has signed an extension at Kentucky. Brent Venables seems to be the guy in the clubhouse that they're saying is probably going to be the next head coach. Josh Heupel's name was mentioned too. Shane Beamer's name got mentioned, but Shane's doing a good job in South Carolina his first year, so I don't think he's gonna make that change. Jim, is there a certain candidate you think that stands out, or in the back of your mind, is it a Matt Campbell? Who do you think?
I agree with you. I think Venables, especially with Clemson, kind of taking a step back this year. He may look at this as his opportunity to go be a head coach again. He has ties back at Oklahoma. I'm hoping Matt Campbell gets in the mix because I'm afraid that a guy like Matt Campbell may have missed his window. And, the window was open for a solid 2-year period. It seemed like he was ready to go, and then some bigger names popped up. I don't think any of us expected Riley or Kelly to jump in the mix. We were all waiting to see what was going to happen with Fickle in Cincinnati with their run, and he seems like he's loyal to make this run with his guys. If Campbell doesn't get this job with Freeman landing at Notre Dame right now, and deservedly so, where does Matt Campbell fit? It's only now he has to go and prove he can get back to a Big 12 championship to get back in the mix and not just be 7-5 and a hard-nosed loyal coach.
C-Bus, here's one for you. Ryan Day to the Bears, Luke Fickell, or Matt Campbell to Ohio State. What do you think?
I have never ruled out the fact that Ryan Day would like the opportunity to coach in the NFL at some point, knowing that he cut his teeth in the NFL. I don't think he's quite ready to make that jump yet. I think he would like to win a national title at Ohio State first. So I think there's probably a little bit of time there. I think there's no secret that Ohio State fans view Luke Fickell as the next guy. If Ryan Day, either due to performance or makes a quick exit to the NFL to go run somewhere. I'm with Coach Kramer on the Oklahoma piece and kind of the Matt Campbell thing, right? I watched him on senior day with the Iowa State player, and boy, if you can't like that guy and how much you can tell he cares about those kids, that's a coach that's not leaving. That would not be leaving the week that the team could maybe sneak into the playoffs. I'll tell you that much, right? But with that being said, it looks like it's Venerable's job at Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's in that little bit of the peril, and there's always that little bit of nerves there of this musical chairs of coaches, and it's like, oh my gosh, do we get stuck with third choice or fourth choice guy? And does that begin a little bit of a step back for us, right? So I think they're going to do their due diligence as best they can, but they got to react pretty quickly because transfer portal opens up, and boy, you can lose those recruits and that edge pretty fast.
All right, guys, buy or sell. I got some good ones here. I think some of them are pretty easy. We've already talked about some of them, but the first one is and C-Bus, I'll start with you and go down here on my screen. Did Syracuse make the right decision? I wish Medicis was on here. Dino Babers going to come back for another year. He's 29-43, and he's 15-35 in conference. You buying that Syracuse made the right decision?
Whew. I'm going to buy it so I can get a bunch of eye rolls. And the reason I'm going to go down that path is the simple fact that I don't know who else Syracuse is bringing in, right?
Joe Moorhead. Joe Moorhead,
I think, is going to Akron, Rock.
Yeah, I know.
And Akron was the worst program in college football for the last 3 years. So maybe Syracuse isn't that far behind him. But no, I'm gonna buy it just from the standpoint of I think they showed flashes this year. We all know Dino cost him some games in his game management, and there's plenty to be desired there. But they sure as heck seemed like they fought for him. I'm willing to, it looks like he's rebuilding the staff, going to retool the staff a little bit. So I think you give him one more year, see how it rolls. And if he burns that bridge, you give yourself a whole 12 months to find,
Jim, what do you think?
Hire Coach Kramer.
You buying it?
Well, I know why Syracuse is buying it because obviously they don't want to pay the buyout. But it's tough. Where else in Power 5 football can you not make a bowl game 5 out of 6 years and still be coming back? We're not talking about making a championship game. We're talking about being bowl eligible. So,
yeah.
But we're going to root for him because that's the team down the road. So hopefully he gets it turned around. We're in his corner, but I'm surprised that the move wasn't made.
Jake, how about you?
Just like Kramer says, I'm going to buy, but I kind of think Syracuse might be reaching out to some of those contacts out there. And if they can get a guy that they want, I could see them, all right, we're going to do a buyout to get him out of there. If they get their right guy that they want in that situation. If they don't get that or the feelers come back are not great, then they're going to stick out for one more year. But I could definitely see them, that athletic department reaching out and seeing who's out there, who could be interested. So if we do spend this money, we better get our guy.
Coach O was a former Syracuse assistant. Bring him to Syracuse.
Entertaining.
Listen, the buyout's the reason. I agree with Jim, and we all know that. However, now he's making changes to his staff. He has to. They probably said that, but I thought he was an offensive guy. He was this big offensive guy when he was at Bowling Green. The offense, he said, I get to play in a dome 7 games a year. They've been horrible on offense, and he's cost them so many games. Buy him out. They can find a way to do it. There's somebody out there. There's got to be somebody out there that can come in and win some games. So I'm selling. I know Medicis would sell it because he told me he would, but I'm selling. They should have got rid of him. But like Jim, you said, we got to root for him. He's right up the road, so we got to hope he turns it around. All right, I just asked this one earlier,
I like that.
I'll start reverse order. Jake, I'll start with you. Is Ryan Day a serious candidate for the Bears job to coach Justin Fields?
Yeah, I would have to say, if the Bears want to, bring in kind of one of the better one of the better college coaches. But, the hard part is, and I don't know Day's background. I'm not sure if he has that NFL experience. And I know college coaches that go up that don't have the NFL experience of being even position coach. It's kind of a rude awakening almost. It will definitely help that he has Fields, but, there's 10 other guys on the field with Fields, and you got to get the right players that fit around him and everything. And, And you got to almost buy into what Justin does well at the Bears. And so if it's Day that thinks he can do that, who knows? But I think they're going to stick with another NFL guy. Possibly bring in the Chiefs OC Eric Bieniemy. So I think he's a little bit further down, but I think he'll get talked to, have a cup of coffee with.
Jim, you buying or selling it?
I'm selling that right now. I think the Bears have a major overhaul to make, and I think it's not solely on Fields. I agree with Jake on that, and I think they may even go with more of a defensive minded coach and bring in an offensive coordinator. They got to figure out a way to beat the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings consistently, so I think Day would do a great job. I do believe he was a positional coach in the NFL, so he does have some NFL ties, and I'm sure he would do a fantastic job. But I'm going to sell it right now.
C-Bus, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to sell it. He was quarterback coach for the Eagles with Chip Kelly, and then went to the Niners as quarterback coach for the Niners in, I think, 2016 before he came to Ohio State. Yeah, like I said, Rock, I just don't think the timing's right yet. I don't think that there's not pull there, and I don't think there's probably not a little bit of intoxication to try to go to the next level and perform. But I think he probably still views Ohio State with some unfinished business that he wants to take care of.
I'm going to buy it. I'm not saying he'll get the job, but I think he will probably call his buddy Urban Meyer and probably talk about the job a little bit. He's going to have his quarterback that he's had, obviously at Ohio State. So I think he'll talk about it. And listen, I know Michigan beat Ohio State for the first time. He looked deflated after that game. I mean, when you watch him and listen to him in that press conference, and I know it's only one game, and I'm not jumping on the wagon to say I think that guard is now going to change where Harbaugh may get him for the next couple of years until Michigan does it again. But Ryan Day looked deflated. I mean, that was his first loss in the Big Ten in 20-something games. I think
first loss in the conference ever since being the head coach, right?
So I think he's going to listen, but I don't know if he'll take it. But I think he'll listen. And
he should be deflated. He got his nose bloodied for 60 minutes.
I know for sure. So C-Bus, I'll start with you. It's about Jim Harbaugh.
Of course, my favorite.
Does the win Saturday change things going forward for Jim Harbaugh in Michigan?
Oh, I'll buy that. Absolutely. I think it. I think the first thing it does is I think it buys him some instant credibility with some of the fans, and I think from a recruiting perspective as well. So I think there's some immediate traction there. I still think he's got to show, I still think he has some things he's got to prove, right? He's still got to get a quarterback and develop a quarterback, and they got to show that they can go there. But yeah, I think, look, anytime you haven't been to the top of the mountain in that side of the division, and then you finally get there and you beat your rival, it's got to have some positive impact for the program. I think it's good for college football. I think it's good for the rivalry. Even though I didn't think that Saturday afternoon, come Wednesday, I gained some perspective there. But yeah, I'll buy that all day. I think it's a big one for him and for the program.
Jim, how about you?
I agree. He darn well better beat Iowa. What a shame it would be if he finally gets the monkey off his back versus Ohio State, and he's sitting there virtually locked with a win to be in the Final Four. And I was a weird opponent for them, right? C-Bus, he's going to want to run the ball. Iowa's got those big linebackers. They want to play downhill. This is going to be a phone booth type of game. And all of a sudden you're in a one possession type game and one ball bounces the wrong way. Now they beat Iowa and get in the Final Four. I think that he's in a really good place, no matter what they do in the Final Four. But I'm rooting for him because I really, C-Bus, though I like Ohio State and I like Michigan, I don't have a horse in that race. I was happy to see him get that win. I just hope he finishes the deal and is able to go to the Final Four.
Yeah. Jake, how about you?
I'm on the same boat with them.
Yeah.
It probably buys them another year until they get smacked by Ohio State again next year, then we're back in the same conversation.
Yeah, I think
One
it's
can hope.
different, though. I think that it buys him some time, but I think just getting that monkey off his back, recruiting is going to be huge. There was a lot of big-time recruits at that game. But again, I think he was able to adapt and make the changes. He went young on his coaching staff. He changed up his defensive philosophy. He had 2 good backs. So, I mean, the identity to run the football, they were more that was the Jim Harbaugh at Stanford. That was the Jim Harbaugh at San Francisco. And I never understood why he got away from that. So hopefully that's back. But, Jim, I'm with you. He's got to close the deal now and beat Iowa and get to that Final Four. And then it's all right there in front of him. So hopefully Saturday they can pull it off. So, you guys, let's go through some of these predictions. I want to start with the Conference USA game. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. I want to get into some BCS stuff here at the end. But the Conference USA is Texas San Antonio 11-1 against Western Kentucky, who these 2 teams played earlier in the year in a shootout. And Western Kentucky lost 52-46. Who you like, C-Bus?
Give me UTSA. I've been on them all year. I think they're a blast to watch. Tough that they just stubbed their toe to end the season going into this championship game, but I think it'll be another shootout. I think it'll be highly entertaining. But I think it's the Roadrunners' year, man. They've had a phenomenal season, especially their story coming from nothing. They just became a program 5 years ago, right? So to think that they're here is absolutely amazing. So I'll be pulling for them, but I like them. I like them this game. Maybe field goal. It's gonna be close. Nip tuck.
Jim, how about you? Who you like?
I'll take UTSA. I'll be honest, I don't know much about either team, but I'm going to root for them. It seems like a real neat story, so get it done.
Jake, you going with them too?
No, I'm going to go with Western Kentucky. Being close to them, that they might have the formula of, how we can beat them, and that how well is a UTSA going to bounce back off that. So I'm going to go with Western Kentucky with the upset.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was looking through these guys, both their schedules. Western Kentucky lost to Michigan State 48-31. I don't know why I'm just basing it off of that game, but they played a tougher schedule than UTSA. So I'm going to go with Western Kentucky in that game, just because who they played. All right, the Pac-12. This wasn't even a close game in the regular season. Utah beat Oregon 38-3. And you talk about physically getting smacked. They smacked Oregon. Now with Joe Moorhead, they might be losing their offensive coordinator. Oregon, Utah. Jake, who you got?
Ooh, I'm gonna go Utah. That game was not close, and they just beat them up physically. It wasn't didn't get out schemed. They just muscled up and beat them down physically. So that's very hard for a team to bounce back from that, because there's really not a game plan when you get beat up that bad. So going Utah.
Jim, who you like?
I like Utah as well. I think that something's going on there in Oregon, because there's no reason the offensive coordinator from Oregon should be taking the head job at Akron. So something's going on in that building. And just from what Utah did earlier in the year, I'm going to go with the Utes.
C-Bus?
Boy, Coach Kramer, great to have you back, because that's a fantastic point. What is going on? You're going to go coach Akron, leaving Oregon. But with that being said, I'm going to go against the grain. Give me a little Corso, not so fast, my friends. I'm going to take Oregon just from the standpoint of, I think it's really hard to beat a team twice in the season. And let's see that fight that Oregon has. You get bloodied your nose, you get a chance to redeem yourself, turn around, play them pretty quickly again. I got Oregon in a close one, but I got Oregon pulling this one out.
When's Kyle Whittingham going to get any credit for the job he's done at Utah?
Oh, tough.
I mean,
coach.
he
tough
has
place
done
to play.
this year. Yeah,
he has done a hell of a job. I think they beat him up again. I think it's going to be the same thing. The Joe Moorhead thing. The only thing I can think of is at times somebody has said that maybe him and Mario Cristobal butted heads a little bit because of all the rumor that Moorhead could be candidates at other places. I mean, Moorhead was an assistant coach at Akron, but it's the worst program in the country. It's like a step down for Joe Moorhead.
Sure.
But I think Utah, the way they are physically, I think they beat him again up front. But Oregon played better. the last couple of weeks, but give me Utah again. All right, I got to go with the Pac-12 or the let me see here. What's my schedule here? I got the Big 12, Oklahoma State, Baylor. Jim, who you like?
I'm going Oklahoma State, and I think things are going to get very interesting with an Oklahoma State victory. Let's root for Gundy. Let's finish this thing off. Same thing. He beat his rival, and let's see if he can do it the very next week in championship week.
Jake, who you like?
Go on, Oklahoma State. I think last time they played, they won by 10, but just that Oklahoma State defense is a little bit different, and Oklahoma State likes to run the ball. So, hopefully they, like Kramer said, it's going to be interesting if they can get this victory.
C-Bus?
Man, I really want to take Baylor in this game. I just think Baylor's a sneaky, really good team. Dave Renata coach stepping in from now I'm gonna forget the coach who went to Carolina, and really has really steadied that program, and has them playing really well. I just think Oklahoma State's defense is too much. I think it's ironic to me. Oklahoma State's problem for the last 10 years has been they can score all the points in the world and they can't stop anybody. And this year they can stop just about anybody, but they struggle scoring points. I don't think it will hurt them. I don't think it's going to hurt them on Saturday. Might hurt them in the playoff, but I'm going to go Oklahoma State.
My heart wants Mike Gundy in the playoffs because I think he deserves it. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country, and I think I do think that if they win, they'll be in the playoff. But I'm going with Baylor, only because I thought the way Baylor physically beat up Oklahoma. I know Oklahoma State's defense is much better than it was a year ago, but something about this Baylor team in these big games, they're physical for a Big 12 team. I'm going to go with Baylor, but if Oklahoma State wins, I hope Mike Gundy gets in because I think he deserves to get in the playoff. All right, Utah State, San Diego State. In the Mountain West. Has anybody stayed up to watch Utah State? Blake Anderson has done a fantastic job at Utah State. Jim, who you like?
Off a record alone, I'm going with San Diego State.
I love it. Love it.
Jake, how about you?
We go with another upset, Utah State. The
Aggies.
The Aggies, yeah, and just because the quarterback alone. I think he could have a breakout game because I think he's been talked about one of the top 3 quarterbacks, I believe, that possible for the draft. So I think this could be his shining moment.
C-Bus, how about you?
Yeah, I like Utah State. I have watched them rock. I do think they're darn good. And I think too much QB play here. Utah State gets it done. But San Diego State's good. It'll be a fun game.
I'm going to ride with Brady Hoke. I like Gary Anderson. I think he's done a fantastic job there. But I'm going to go with Brady Hoke. They impressed me last week because Boise State got 2 touchdowns on them. And I thought they were going to right the ship for the rest of the game, but San Diego State came back. So give me Brady Hoke. SEC, Georgia, Alabama. Many think that if it's a close game and Georgia wins, a 2-loss Bama is going to stay in. I think if they lose, they're out. C-Bus, who you got?
Put me down for Georgia to win this game. But I'm sure we'll have one more show before the college football playoffs. But I don't think Georgia is as good as we think Georgia is. I'm just going to say that right now. I don't think the SEC is as strong as it's been in the past. I think if you look at who Georgia's beaten, when they've beaten them, they faced a decent couple teams. That Clemson victory, we know, does not have the shine that we thought it'd have to start the season. I don't think it's the same Bama team as I said earlier in the show. That's why I got Georgia winning this football game. I think Georgia has to win this game. They're in regardless, but they got to win this game because Alabama has snatched the heart out of their chest the last 2 times they played in the SEC championship and in the college football playoff final. So I'm going to take Georgia here by double digits, 10 points.
Jake, how about you?
That's a tough one. I'm leaning towards Georgia, but I just Alabama's been in a lot of close games where Georgia's blown out a lot of teams. And so it'd be interested to see how well they respond to that with Georgia. they definitely are going to keep Alabama low scoring game, but I'm still Georgia. I still don't have faith in their quarterback Bennett. I just want to see what he does in a prime time. Where the game's on the line. I think he's had some easy roads, so you know what? I'm gonna go another upset. I'm gonna go Alabama and a last second field goal to win it.
Jim, how about you?
I'm going to go Georgia, but I agree with both. I question how many points Georgia can score in that type of battle versus Alabama's defense. But Georgia has to look at this as the national championship game because they do not want Alabama in the playoff.
No.
If Georgia keeps them out, I think Georgia wins the national title. I think if Alabama gets in, all bets are off.
Well, I agree with everything you guys are saying. Obviously, I think we agree Alabama's got the best quarterback or the better quarterback in the game. Georgia's got the best defense. I think Georgia gets them. I think it's a close game. I think Georgia gets them, but I'm with you guys. If Alabama gets in this playoff, you cannot count Nick Saban out for making another run at the national championship. But I think it'll be a close game. And listen, Georgia's offense isn't too bad. Their defense gets them the ball. The time of possession, I think, for the season, Georgia's had almost doubled some of these other teams because their defense gives them 3 and outs all the time. So I think it'll be a good game, but I think Georgia wins. I think it knocks Alabama out, but we'll see. I think it'll be a close game. Cincinnati, the American Conference, Cincinnati, Houston. The game is at Cincinnati, C-Bus. You going with your guy?
Yeah, I'm going to take Fickle and the boys here. I think it's just, I think it buoys them that they're in now, that they, when they look at the rankings, they know if they win, there's, it's awfully tough to probably keep them out now. I think Houston's a darn good football team, but Cincinnati's been that team all year. They kind of raise up to the competition in which they're playing. And if they think they're playing a lesser opponent, they kind of play down. I think that works in their favor because I think they know Houston's good. And I think they'll be ready there. I think Cincinnati wins this one. I think the Cincinnati wins this one big. I'm going to take Cincinnati by 17. I think they're going to pour it on and they're going to party all night Saturday night and wake up and watch the college football selection show on Sunday morning and keep drinking and go through the rest of the weekend.
Jim, you riding with Cincinnati?
I think Fickle's players love him. I mean, the darn guy's doing chin-ups in the locker room after the game on some fight. I thought the whole ceiling was going to come down when all the guys were jumping on, but I think they love him. I think they respect the heck out of him that through all this chaos in the last 72 hours, his response was, I'm preparing to beat Houston, or I'm in playoff mode right now. And I think he told his guys that he wants to be at Cincinnati, and I think they're going to play their rear ends off. I think they win big.
Jake, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I think Fickle is using this. Look, guys, you're still ranked 4th. No one has respect for you. And just playing that card that you're still the underdog. Let's go out and make I don't think it's going to be a blowout. And I've seen Houston play a couple of times. Dana's done a great job down there. It reminds me of the West Virginia shirt you got on right now. But I definitely think they'll come out of it with the victory.
I like Cincinnati big. I agree with all you guys are saying. And, to me, I think this goes back to Cincinnati down the road is going to join the Big 12. Fickle's happy where he's at. He's a Midwest guy. And I'm with you, Jim. I think they're going to play their tail off for him because I think that team loves him. And his name, as we all know, his name's been rumored for all these jobs. Every job that's come up, the top candidate is Luke Fickle. And I think his team respects that. They've looked better the last couple of weeks. I think they win big, and I think if they win, they're in. Regardless of what people may say, I think if they win, they're in, and they might even move up to 2 or 3, depending on what else happens. But I think they win big. All right, I got to go to the Big Ten, Michigan, Iowa. C-Bus, I'll start with you.
Well, man, which Michigan team shows up? Michigan State versus Michigan State or versus Ohio State? I'm going to go Michigan. But I will tell you, as being a perennial, fan and watching my team play in the Big Ten championship game, it is very difficult to get up back-to-back weeks after paying your rival and then turn around and have to get up and do it again. Nobody's talking about Iowa. Everybody's writing it as a foregone conclusion. that this is Harbaugh's coronation and they're going to waltz into the playoff. I kind of think, Rock, that Michigan could lose this game and they might still be able to get in, to be honest with you. But with that being said, I'm going to take Michigan in a close one. I think they do just enough. I think Hutchinson and that defensive line is able to smother Iowa. They're not able to score enough points. I think it's going to be tight. Might not be the prettiest game in the world, but I got Michigan coming out touchdown or less.
Jim, you were talking about Fickle doing the pull-ups. Here's a question: who does more pull-ups, you or Jake, in a competition? How many do you think you can do?
Pull-ups?
I'll give it to Kramer. I'll let him have it.
I was going to wait till he said it. I didn't want to say it out loud.
Just bow out.
Those days are done.
I was silent waiting for that.
Good bailout.
No, if I was in college, we'll see.
Jim, who you like?
Man, I agree with everything Seabus said, other than he said that Michigan could get in with a loss. I don't know if they would get in with a loss, but I got to think that Ann Arbor was rocking Saturday night, and for them to sit down and get back to business, just what is their refocus level? I'm rooting for Michigan. I'm hoping they do it, but I think this is going to be much tighter than people think.
Jake?
Yeah, I'm on the same with them. I think it's Michigan pulls it out. It's going to be tight, but I see McNair. Is it McNair, the quarterback for Michigan? McNamara, sorry, is going to have a game. I don't think it's going to come down to the running thing like they did at Ohio State. I think it's going to come to the air, and I think he's going to have a 3-touchdown game that leads them.
I agree with everything you guys are saying. I'm actually happy that they're playing Iowa versus Wisconsin, just because Michigan played them earlier in the year, and it's a different Wisconsin team. But I kind of think this Iowa team plays into what Michigan likes to do. The quarterback on paper is not going to beat you throwing the football. They're gonna smash mouth you. They're gonna run the football. It depends on what you guys say. What Michigan team's going to show up? Is it going to be the team that held Ohio State to 60 yards rushing, and those two defensive ends just get after the quarterback? I can't think that Jim Harbaugh is going to let this team come down and not be prepared and have a letdown after that big win. I can't see it, but could it happen? It could easily happen, but it can't happen. I like Michigan by double digits. I think they come out and they play well. They should be 12-0. I think they're coming in with some swag. And I think they'll come in probably the following week, still at number 2 with a win. So I'm going to ride with Michigan. Pitt Wake, the ACC. Coach Kramer, you saw Pitt in person. And I know Pickett's been outstanding all year. Rightfully, he deserves it. He came back for another year. You riding with Pitt over my fighting Dave Clawson's?
I like Coach Clawson, but I'm going to ride Pittsburgh just from the sense that I think their defense is better than Wake Forest defense, and I think they're just going to make 1 or 2 more stops.
Yeah. Jake?
I think this is going to possibly decide who the Heisman Trophy winner is, too. What quarterback's going to have the best game? And I'm going to lean towards Wake Forest. I think Hartman, has been playing very well at the end of the year, and I just see Wake on fire and Clawson taking it now that, a small school in the ACC has a chance to win it all in the ACC.
C-Bus, who you got?
Yeah, I'm with Coach Kramer. I think Pitt's defense is going to find a way to rise up. Wake Forest's offense is fun to watch, and it's beautiful when it's poetry in motion when it's going. I just don't think they can stop anybody. And I think if Pitt's able to muster a couple stops, which I think they can, their defense is good enough. I think they just outlast Wake Forest on the scoreboard. So I'm going to take Wake.
Well, I was hoping Medicis would be here to give me some props, because before the season started, I picked Wake to go 10-2 to lose to North Carolina and Clemson, and they did. Pitt, I know Pete beat Syracuse, but at times Pitt didn't look the greatest. The quarterbacks would be a good matchup. If Wake Forest can get any stops, I think Wake wins in a shootout. So I'm going to say Wake, just because I'm a Dave guy, like 48, 42, 48, 45. But maybe the Wake defense shows up and gets a few stops. But I think it should be one of the better games of the day. And it's an 8:00 game, the same time as the Michigan game at 8. But I'm gonna ride Dave Clawson. either way, it's going to be nice to see Pitt or Wake in a New Year's Six bowl game. So, all right, guys, we're coming down to the wire. I just want to hear your guys' BCS top 4 or 5 teams, and then if you guys just want to do, based off of the games that's coming Saturday, if you could see any shakeup in that. So, Jim, I'll start with you. Who'd you have?
Well, I'm going to go with my 4 teams getting in the BCS Final Four. I'm going to go with Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Cincinnati 3, and just out of pure disappointment of Brian Kelly, I'm going to say that Alabama loses, Baylor upsets Oklahoma State, and somehow Notre Dame squeaks into the 4 hole.
It could happen. It could easily happen. C-Bus, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I thought the committee did a good job this week going in. I thought everybody is slotted about where they want them to be. They always like to boost up some of those teams that are going to play in the conference championship. Iowa sneaking back into, to what did they finish, 12 or 13 spot there to go into the, Big Ten championship game. All that kind of makes sense to me. But I like where Coach Kramer's at. However, I'm going to go Oklahoma State. I'm going to go Georgia 1. I'm going to go Michigan 2. I'm going to go Cincinnati 3, and then I'm going to take Oklahoma State 4. I think Bama falls out. I think there's going to be talk about, one-loss Big 12 team versus a 2-loss SEC school, and all that fun stuff that will come along with that. But I just got a gut feeling that it's time for some fresh faces, and Oklahoma State's the one that we all kind of sit back and smile on and say, "Wow, that's pretty cool."
Jake, how about you?
I'm going with the changeup. I'm going with the big upset. I'm going Alabama 1, Michigan 2, Oklahoma State 3, and Cincinnati stays at 4.
So you don't even think Georgia's in?
Well, sorry. Let me stand corrected. Cincinnati out, Georgia at number 4.
Oh, okay. Okay. I feel better.
I think they're going to punish. I really don't think they want Cincinnati in. And if Cincinnati has a close game,
they'll punish them.
They're going to punish them. And especially if Oklahoma State wins out there and has great, just with their conference record, I could see them punishing Cincinnati, just an overall strength of schedule.
I will say, Rock, and I know you got to go. I will say this. I'm rooting the one chaos that I think would be fascinating, because I think we all agree there's some really tough matchups in these conference championship games. If Iowa pulls the upset against Michigan, Georgia beats Alabama, and if Houston and Baylor win, what the heck do you do then?
Then right? I think then I think Notre Dame's in.
Well, we know Notre Dame's in, but I'm just saying Notre Dame's in. But like I said, you're going to have 2 lost teams in the playoff, regardless of what you do, right? Like I said, I don't want that, because I got some rooting interest with Cincinnati and some of those schools. But it would be fascinating to see what that committee would do. I can't imagine they get any sleep Saturday into Sunday trying to figure out how they would slot 4 teams or 3 teams outside of Georgia.
Yeah, mine's what you guys said. I got Georgia 1, I got Michigan 2, I got Cincinnati 3, I got Oklahoma State 4 getting in. But I think the big question is going to be that if Georgia wins, if Michigan wins, Cincinnati wins, a closer game, and then Oklahoma State beats Baylor, how can you keep a Power 5 team conference champ out and keep a non-Power 5 team like Cincinnati in? I think that's going to be the debate. Does Oklahoma State, do they get in? And I think the chaos, like you guys said too, if Michigan loses, if Cincinnati loses, and then Georgia beats Alabama, Notre Dame's going to get in with an interim coach, then you go down to the 2 lost teams. Who gets in is the 2 lost teams.
That's why I said I feel like there's a path for Michigan to get in, even if they were to lose to Iowa. They would need chaos, they would need help, but I think there's a path there. I just, in looking at the committee, and the one thing we didn't touch on it, we obviously did a great job talking, as we always do, but I had a big problem with the committee saying that they were going to hold the coaching status at Notre Dame as a potential decision maker for them going in here. Now with Freeman and that news kind of breaking here while we were talking, I think that probably calms that waters a little bit, but I sure as heck thought that was awfully convenient to say we can use that as a factor to where we want to go. But I don't think I think, Rock, you brought up, Cincinnati versus Oklahoma State, right? Like, how's that shake out? I think that might be a seeding thing, right? I think where I can see where they maybe put Cincinnati at 4 and they put Oklahoma State at 3 because they value a Power 5 championship win, 2 top 10 wins the last 2 weeks for Oklahoma State. I could see maybe where that cost Cincinnati and they got to go play Georgia in the football, in the semis. I'd
like to see Fickle against Michigan, that Ohio State guy against Michigan at the 2-3 matchup.
Well, yeah, because that's the easiest path for your boys
to get to the championship.
I know where your head's
I want to avoid Georgia, and I want to avoid that.
But what's Harbaugh's record against the Ohio State guys? I mean, come on.
You know what?
They only got the one win.
You guys are coaches, and I know on paper, the Big Ten hasn't had that much success against the SEC. But you get in the playoff, you got to play the game. You never know. You got to get in there and play it.
Got to lace it up.
So you guys, I'm going to pull you guys off. If you guys got any parting shots, great. We've talked quite a bit. It's good to have you guys back on. We'll do probably one more show. I'd probably say in a couple weeks we'll talk about the BCS and we'll talk through the New Year's 6 bowl games. Probably be a little bit shorter show, but I'll reach out to you guys. But Jim, it was good to have you back on. C-Bus, always good to have you on. Jake, you too.
I can't believe you didn't do one of the greatest rivalries, the Pick'em. I know it's
one?
not this week; it's the following week.
Oh, the Army-Navy game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep forgetting it's not this week; it's the following week. That's why. But all right, let me throw you guys off here, and C-Bus, I'll let you start it here.
All right. Well, normally I stick to I stick to sports, right, when I talk about this, and I'm going to keep the sports says, but I'm going to go a little somber. For those that haven't seen the news, yesterday, terrible, tragic shooting, another high school shooting. Seems like we're talking about that way too much nowadays. Oxford High School in Michigan, 4 kids died tragically. I want to talk a little bit about Tate Meyer, one of the kids that tragically lost his life, a football player, had just gone to Toledo for a visit. And official visit, hoping to get recruited there and sign on there. He challenged the gunman. He took the gunman head on, saved dozens and dozens of lives while doing that. A true hero, and a gut wrenching scenario, but something that I feel like we all we all need to remember all those kids that are gone and recognize all those heroes out there. But Tate Meyer, tip of the hat, sacrificed himself for his classmates at 17. Tragic story, but something I wanted to make sure we were all aware of.
Coach Kramer,
Well, I'm not going to follow that up by C-Bus. I mean, that was. I'm gonna tell everyone to enjoy the football games, and I second what C-Bus said. And thanks for having me on tonight.
Good to have you back, Coach. Jake, what do you got?
It's just like Kramer. That's hard to follow. I mean, I guess trying to change into a good mood it's interesting now with all these new contracts coming out with these coaches. What's going to be down the road? Is it going to be, hey, we're going to give them a yacht, a private jet, their own golf course, whatever they want. So it's going to be interesting. I think this opens a lot of doors and just little ways that they can steal coaches from other places. And, it's kind of excited to see what's going on with the college and how, it's just a trickle down effect and it's just a domino and it keeps going and going. And I'll be interested to see where it stops and where new coaches are and how well they do there. But it's always great to be on the show and had fun this year.
No, I appreciate it. We'll run one back here probably in a couple of weeks or so. But mine's actually we've talked a little bit about it, but I think when you saw that scene at the end of all these rivalry games, you see the fans at the Michigan game at the end, and it's nice to see college football back. It's nice to see the fans back in the stadium. It's nice to see the student sections rocking. Some of those scenes at the end of those games were unbelievable to see. And of course, I talked about the Jim Harbaugh piece, but I'm not even talking about the wins and losses. I think what he's doing with the bonus money to pay it back at the university to a lot of those employees that took pay cuts, I think that's huge. And with all this money talk, with these coaches getting all this money, to be able to do something like that right around the holiday time, the game is never bigger than the coach, at least in my eyes. It's always about giving back, and I think what he was able to do says a lot about his character, and especially with everything up against him, his records and all that. That was a really good gesture by him to do that for those employees. So hats off to Jim Harbaugh. Now he's got to close the deal. So, well, listen, guys, appreciate it. And we'll run it back here in a couple of weeks. I'll reach out to you guys, see if you're available to do a New Year's 6 BCS show. And we'll see who comes out on top on Saturday. So I appreciate you guys. So awesome to have the guys back, and it's been great. This college football season has been fantastic to see the crowds back. Of course, I'm a Michigan homer, so I had to give the shout out. But I think what Jim Harbaugh did was fantastic, especially with all this money being thrown around, all these coaches, and with a lot of these players transferring all over the place. There is some good in college football. There'll be some great games this Saturday. So if you're a football person, they start, I believe, at noon and they go all the way through probably 10, 11 o'clock at night. So it should be fun. And we'll run this back probably in a couple of weeks. We'll probably highlight all the New Year's 6 games. We'll talk about the Final Four for sure. And we'll bring the coaches back for one more show before the new year. So as I say, every Wednesday night, the Rock Pile is where dreams become reality. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.